Hey everybody, I'm Charting Man Dan with the Chart Guys. Happy New Year. This is our 11th installment of the longer term time frame series where we look at things on monthly charts, quarterly charts. Because it's the end of the year, we're going to be looking at 2026 themes and some longer term time frames that I'm watching on those themes as well. Let's get to it. Thanks for any likes and shares along the way. Learn how to trade stocks, crypto, and hype sectors with a global chat room led by professional traders, as well as daily live streams at chartguys.com. So I'm starting 2026 off with a cold. Some jerks on a plane gave it to me, coming back from the holidays a couple days ago, but we're going to power through here. Feel free to ask questions as you go in the YouTube chat. I'll be checking in on that. Once I get through my routine, we're going to check in on the broader market, some of the major setups that we were watching from the last video, and then looking forward into 2026, the themes that I'm going to be watching, the narratives that could potentially play out, and the names associated with those themes. Before we get to it, again, on our YouTube channel, if you go to the playlists, these are all compiled. I'll change the name of this one eventually to Long-Term Patterns number 11, but we've been doing this now for the last couple of years, and again, I cannot suggest enough going through these videos and watching them one after the other to get a sense of continuity in how these patterns shape up, how they play out, because that gives a lot of benefit to learning how to utilize these longer-term time frames. And so again, before I construct these streams on what do I want to talk about, I just watched the last one, and first we're going to update the things that we were talking about in the last stream. And the last stream was to end September, start of October. So it's been 3 months since then. The NASDAQ monthly time frame. So again, we were talking about this at the end of September, and I was talking about the monthly stair-step move that we were seeing in the indices, and how we know monthly consolidation is going to be inevitable. There will be fear associated with that monthly consolidation when it happens, but a monthly higher low is the most likely result of that pullback. And so the question we have right now, heading into Q1 2026 is, are we going to get further monthly consolidation? We broke the stair step just barely in November. Now we have a December monthly inside bar. Does that break bear into further monthly consolidation, eventually scouting the monthly higher low? Or can this inside bar break bull and have us testing the all-time highs? And if you zoom in, which we're not going to do much in this stream, but the daily chart's just a picture-perfect equilibrium, and the direction this equilibrium breaks is going to dictate that monthly inside bar. So that's how I'm approaching the start of this year. Watching this equilibrium, looking for a higher low to try and form early in the first few days, but this break is going to dictate a lot about the start of the year, and the break's going to take place here in January. So again, the S&P 500 is the same thing. Do we see a bear break into further monthly consolidation, reminding ourselves the monthly higher low will still be most likely, or can bulls just keep going? And the more we run in 2026, the more I'm going to be looking for a blow off top. I'm not going to talk a lot about this in this video. I did a blow off top live stream somewhere back here, and we reset things with the Trump tariff dump to start 2025, cooled everything off, extended the amount of time, in my opinion, that we can continue seeing strength. But again, if we were to start this year with a bunch more strength, I'm going to be looking for a blow off top. We'll talk about that later on down the line. It's not relevant here in the short term. All right, so broader market, still all bulls, monthly inside bar, daily equilibrium. Monthly inside bar is going to break here in January, and we'll see the direction that happens. Another thing that I talked about in the last stream 3 months ago was watching for the possibility of rotation from metals to crypto. At that point in time, Bitcoin was still right up near the all-time highs. The metals had their run underway, meaning there was a lot of strength still. We were right here at that stream, and this is something I want to highlight because the thesis was wrong. The thesis was, let's see if we get rotation from metals into crypto. Why I want to highlight this is, okay, I had a wrong thesis. I didn't lose any money. I didn't long crypto, and I kept long metals. Why? Because the thesis was invalidated and it didn't shape up. I said, I'm watching for this, and the signs didn't present themselves. In the last stream 3 months ago, I was saying, we know weekly consolidation will be inevitable in the metals. We're going to look for a weekly higher low to be the result of that consolidation. Does it pull back further into monthly consolidation? We'll have to see. But if weekly EMA 12 holds as it has been holding the entire year, the metal bulls are going to keep their complete control. And gold held weekly EMA 12, and silver held weekly EMA 12 as well. And so I kept my silver position, and I didn't long crypto into this weakness. That said, the theme is still something I'm keeping an eye out for. And I talked about it in depth in the last crypto stream that I did, so I'm not going to go in depth here. Again, it's just the same mindset. If metals top out and see a couple months of consolidation, which is definitely on the table when you get a blow off top kind of setup, then I'm going to be watching, does that lead to Bitcoin setting a monthly higher low? There are red flags for Bitcoin, obviously. Underperforming the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. Relative weakness. We lost monthly EMA 12. In these prior streams, I was saying as long as monthly EMA 12 is support, the bulls have nothing to worry about. We lost it. But technically speaking, it is still a monthly uptrend on Bitcoin. So what I'm watching for is if the metals do top out more meaningfully, does that lead to a monthly higher low being set on Bitcoin? If it does, then we have to be watching about a potential monthly head and shoulders. So it's not just going to be, oh, bulls are fine, we're heading back to all-time highs. It's going to be one step at a time, but a monthly inside bar for Bitcoin. Volatility is coming. Again, daily time frame, you can't get much tighter than that. And so we're getting volatility in crypto here in January, and we'll see if it's a monthly high or low or not. So again, it's just laying all that out. I'm not acting in the here and now and just patiently observing, is this shaping up or not? Silver, back to the metals. So I exited 85% of my silver swing. I talked about that in the last weekend video updating the stock market. And my reason for doing so is the trade far exceeded my expectations from entries in the 20s, and we were heading to a blow-off top. And my mindset was, I'm going to be watching for weekly consolidation, and I'm going to be watching for a weekly higher low. If we pull back, it's the same exact thing as the last stream 3 months ago. If we pull back and hold weekly EMA 12 and set a higher low, there are no major red flags. This bull move can keep going. Silver can hit 100 in 2026. If we lose weekly EMA 12, for silver, it would be the first time in 7 or 8 months. For gold, it would be the first time in over a year. Then we can say things are shifting more significantly, just like we did with Bitcoin. Bitcoin lost monthly EMA 12 for the first time in over a year, multiple years, red flag. And the concept that I'm talking about here is the EMA rider. And on our YouTube channel, I did a live stream specifically talking about the EMA 12 rider. So watch that if you want more. But weekly EMA 12, again, I just look at the longer term time frames and say, okay, we're going to see monthly consolidation. Gold has been straight up on the monthly time frame, again, for pretty much 2 years. We will pull back and look for a monthly higher low. That consolidation will take multiple months. We just don't have enough information as to whether that is what's shaping up right now or not. Weekly EMA 12 is what is most important for gold and silver. And again, it's just one time frame at a time. Okay, silver confirmed a 4-hour downtrend to end this week. Zoom out. Do we confirm a daily downtrend as the result of the next bounce? Zoom out. Do we confirm the first weekly downtrend in a very, very long time? That's how we're going to be viewing things. I can't make a prediction. Metals have topped out for the next 3-4 months. Every single day is going to give us more information. We got extended enough where I wanted to lock in the vast majority of my profit. I will be looking for a weekly higher low to add some of it back. But again, it's just 1 day at a time, and weekly EMA 12 for both gold and silver is the most important thing for me. So that's how I'm approaching metals in Q1 2026. Some of the other long-term patterns that we've been watching in these prior streams, Boeing was one of them. This is the 3-month time frame. We have a 3-month, this is what I call a forever equilibrium. This has been forming now for 6 years in the making. This is going to break and lead to a significant spike in volatility. Bulls are hoping that a higher low is being set already. We had a low down at 128s. Bulls are hoping that 176 is the higher low. But the simple statement is we're going to remain range bound unless we break either 242.69 resistance or 128.88 support. And so we're going to be patiently watching this one. The weekly chart has a big bounce here. We can very easily see something like this on the weekly chart to start the year. January, February, this pattern can keep tightening up. Again, when every candle is a quarter, we can keep tightening up for another 3-6 months. But this is one to be watching in 2026. I would assume 2026 is the year that this equilibrium breaks. We've been watching this one for multiple years at this point. So we'll see how that breaks. Another one I've been watching, PG. In a prior stream, I said I have no interest entering PG. We were looking at the yearly chart. Again, EMA 12 rider. We've been riding yearly EMA 12 for something like 30 years. And we keep holding it. And my statement was, I'm not interested looking long PG. I was watching it for it being a dividend name, but I'm not interested looking long PG unless it's for a yearly higher low. We were too extended. We had a yearly stair step 6 years in a row, higher low every year. I don't want to chase. If we see yearly consolidation, I'll be interested. Well, now yearly consolidation is underway. We're going to watch yearly EMA 12, which is in the mid 120s, and see if we keep seeing weakness down there. I'm watching the weekly time frame. EMA 12, rider to the downside. Reject, reject, reject. Bears have full control if weekly EMA 12 is resistance. Okay, so what's the setup I'm watching for? Well, I like oversold bounces. That's one of my edges. Generally, it's on the shorter term time frames. But if you give me weekly oversold looking for a yearly higher low, I'm going to get interested. And if you look back at the previous yearly higher lows that have formed, it has been in weekly oversold conditions. So that's something I'm watching for. Again, I'm not on the edge of my seat, ready to enter PG long. I just know sometime in the next couple of months, the trade may come to me in terms of what I'm looking for. Ideally, I'd like to see weekly oversold. I'd like to see the daily RSI as beat up as possible. When that happens, then I'll make an attempt. But we would need another leg down towards yearly EMA 12, towards the mid 120s for that setup to present itself to me. And that's another 10% drop. So I'm watching it very patiently. Another one from the last few videos, healthcare. We were looking at healthcare, same thing, yearly consolidation. We got it. We got it from a monthly Head and Shoulders, but we were looking for a yearly higher low. And the bulls significantly showed up in Q3, Q4 of 2025. And we're back to testing all-time highs now. So it was a very quick pullback on the yearly time frame. And now we're battling this all-time high zone. Why I was interested in healthcare was LLY. I went long LLY in the last video for the 3-month higher low off EMA 12. And it was a 2-week falling wedge. So I needed confidence. I wanted confidence in the healthcare sector for my LLY long to follow through. At that point in time, I forget where we were at. End of September. The bull move had just happened. So we were still in the 850s. And I entered in the 770s or something. I am now out of this trade. stopped out at 1,000. I don't like my stop out, but one of the problems, when something goes straight up, you don't have support to be going off of. Meaning, straight up for LLY, and then a significant pullback. Well, where does my stop go? Our last key support zone established on the way up is down at 800. I don't want to sit through a 20% drawdown before I stop out. And so I exited. I just used 1,000 psychological, and I may regret that stop out eventually if we see continuation and the bulls keep their full control. But that's the mindset for me in silver. Where's silver's support? Silver went straight up, as we know, and didn't establish much support. Look at this weekly chart. I'd be looking down at 55, previous resistance, as the next support. So if I'm going to hold my long position through weekly consolidation, I don't want to give back 30%. So that's why I sell into strength, wait for a new longer-term support level to be established, and then develop a new trade thesis based on that new level that we have to trade. And so LLY followed through nicely. Weekly, I would be so much more comfortable just saying, all right, now I'm playing off 977. Obviously, in hindsight, if I could go back in time, give it a little bit more of a leash. All right, now I'm playing off 977, stick my stop under 970, and see if the bulls can continue from here. But just wanted to highlight the difference in a significant straight up move, but not having anything nearby to walk a stop up and use, and then the difference between selling into strength with that similar mindset. So we'll see. But I am no longer in LLY. I have much less exposure. I do still have UNH exposure. Let's go UNH for healthcare. UNH, the thesis for my re-entry in UNH was this is the monthly high or low or I'm wrong. And so if UNH is going to follow through in putting in a long-term bottom, we must break 381 and confirm this monthly uptrend. If we get that, we'll then go to the 3-month time frame. Eventually, we'll look for a 3-month lower high and tightening range, but the burden is still on bulls for UNH to confirm that monthly uptrend, and we've just been chopping around here sideways. But that's my only healthcare exposure right now. One more before we look ahead to 2026 themes, actually two more. INTC. So INTC is trying to put in a longer-term bottom. It's gained favor from the Trump administration and the headlines regarding that. This is the 2-month chart with a long-term resistance of 51.28. Anything under 51.28 is a long-term lower high. You can look at it on the 6-month chart if you want. We confirmed a 6-month downtrend, and anything under that is a lower high. What I'm going to be watching for is a potential inverse cup and handle, indicating a longer-term bottom is being set. So if we set a longer-term lower high compared to 51.28, I will be scouting a long-term high or low to see if the bulls can then confirm that inverse head and shoulders. We have, if you go to the 12-month time frame, I'm just viewing this as a multiple decade tightening range. Lower high, trying for the higher low here. So something like that. But the way that I approach the longer term time frames is starting zoomed out and then zooming in. So thesis, if INTC is going to set a lower high compared to 51.28, how would that take shape? What would that look like? All right, let's zoom in. Weekly time frame. Possible head and shoulders. So if we were to bounce from here, fail the recent high of 44, and then confirm a weekly downtrend, that would be the first step towards a 2-month lower high being set, and that would be the setup coming to me. If INTC just heads straight up from here, it's not the setup I'm interested in, and it'll go without me, and that's fine. There's a million other trades out there. But I lay out the ideal scenario. If this trade's going to come to me, it will confirm a weekly head and shoulders, will drop down back towards the upper to mid 20s, and I will then scout a longer term higher low with the thesis that's the higher low for the inverse head and shoulders, or I'm wrong. So again, what we've done so far is we've checked in on a couple of things, but I've laid out a couple game plans. I got my PG game plan. I know what I want to see on the weekly chart to try and shape up a yearly higher low. Now I just did it with INTC. And so that's the approach of these longer term time frames. You find a longer term time frame where you're comfortable with the most likely scenario, or you lay out how you want the trade to shape up. You then zoom in and make note of what it would look like on the zoomed in time frame if that is indeed taking shape. And so these are some of the, I would refer to these names as boring. You know, INTC, PG, these names for me and my style are boring, but if I want long-term swing trades, boring's okay. Last one here before we look ahead is Tesla. So I was watching Tesla for this monthly cup and handle, and I've been mostly long. Tesla was my best day trader in 2025 in terms of gains, and probably in my career. Yeah, in terms of stock, one stock with the most gains, it's Tesla. Just very comfortable trading it, both directions, day trading, etc. So we have the monthly bull flag, we have the resistance break and new all-time highs, but we got an upper wick. Is there a red flag here? We definitely want to make note and be a bit cautious, but we zoom in for more details. What would give me a red flag? Well, we just went straight up 30%, weekly stair step. We have a pattern with a resistance break and no follow through, a support break and no follow through, a resistance break and not much follow through. Whenever you see that, you got to be cautious of megaphone. So I would say worst case for the bulls, this is a megaphone that will head back down towards this support. Best case for the bulls would be a weekly higher low holding EMA 12 and then continuation. We rejected from 500 psychological. I took some swing trade position off something like the 594s. I grabbed a hedge in a different account, short. I've been scaling out of that short the last couple of days. I have half to go. So my mindset is looking to exit that short, so I'm back to only long exposure for a weekly higher low. We haven't confirmed a daily downtrend yet. The bears have had full control this past week, but the bears must confirm a daily downtrend as a result of the next bounce if the probabilities of that megaphone are going to increase. And of course, bulls are hoping that we set a weekly higher low and head right back up towards the upper 400s. So this is a scenario where I had a thesis, it was correct, but now what? Well, now I need to be paying a little bit close attention because it's possible there are red flags presenting themselves. And so one of the themes looking ahead to 2026 is robotics. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And Tesla obviously a part of that. But I'm paying extra close attention to Tesla the first couple of weeks of January to see if this weekly consolidation remains healthy. Again, the retracement at this point, 45% retracement. If you get 50% plus retracement, that increases the red flags for the bulls. So we're going to get a lot of information. And also the NASDAQ. What direction does the NASDAQ break this daily equilibrium? If it breaks it bull, Tesla likely forms a weekly higher low and heads back to the upper 400s. If the NASDAQ breaks bear into further monthly consolidation, the probabilities of a Tesla megaphone increase. So again, I'm not predicting. I'm laying two paths forward. It's either a weekly higher low into all-time high continuation or a potential megaphone that means we're heading back to the mid 300s. And I now, with those two paths forward, I look for details on a daily or weekly basis that shift the probability needle of which is most likely. I'm factoring not only is what is Tesla doing, but what is the NASDAQ doing as well. So now let's talk 2026 themes. And why are themes important? Themes give the narrative. And the narrative, of course, is what retail latches onto. It's what CNBC talks about. It's what social media fervor is created around. Obviously, theme in 2025, AI, chips, NVDA, etc. And you can have many overlapping themes, but these are some of the ones that I'm watching. And we're gonna look at these charts, but just wanted to give the rough lists. And I may add names to the list, take names off the list. Robots, of course, robotics. I foresee, just imagine when the first 0.1% of people, the early adopters, I didn't get a smartphone until years after my friends, but there are the people out there in the market that want to be the first to have the new technology. Think of when we have personal humanoid robots that are going to do your dishes or your laundry or your yard work or whatever. Think about the 0.1%, the first 10,000 people that get those and are sharing on social media the videos of the daily interactions and things like that. In my opinion, that's going to create a fervor around robotics in terms of, oh my goodness, it's actually here. They're actually shipping a product, yada, yada. So robots definitely on watch for that. Rare earth, I'm using the term rare earth loosely. MP, I got uranium in there. I've got lithium in there. For me, rare earth just means all those things. It's my own definition. It's how I'm just compartmentalizing things in my brain. We got robotics, we got rare earth, plant medicine, psychedelics, and cannabis. We'll talk about that. Obviously, shifting legal landscape is the catalyst there. And Euphoria, monthly higher lows. This is not sector specific. These are names that are across a number of sectors, but the setups are very similar in terms of ran hundreds or 1,000+% blow off top. Whenever you run hundreds of percent in a short period of time, you can anticipate a 50% pullback is extremely likely and inevitable. It's going to happen. Well, a lot of these names ran their massive moves, hit their blow off top, and have now pulled back over 50%. And a monthly higher low is the most likely result of this current pullback. So there's a number of names where we could be scouting a monthly higher low in Q1 2026. So let's now look at some of these charts as we go, starting with robots. SERV. I'm watching SERV 2-month time frame. What's that? An equilibrium. I sure love equilibriums, so I'm going to watch the one that has an equilibrium. We run 1,000%. We pull back our 50% plus pullback. Big bounce. We're now looking for a 2-month higher low. Anything above 466 is a 2-month higher low. So we're scouting for that to form, and then eventually later this year, maybe second half of this year, this 2-month equilibrium will break. If it breaks bull, that'd be nice, but we'll see. So what do we need to see for indications that a 2-month higher low is shaping up? I want to see a weekly uptrend as the first step. And when I'm scouting a setup like this, I always need to ask myself, okay, how am I going to approach things? How am I going to enter? How am I going to lay the trade at game plan? Do you want to be aggressive or conservative? If you're going to be conservative, you're going to be more patient, you're going to be more zoomed out, you're going to wait for the opposing direction to prove something to you. And then you can make the statement, that's the 2-month higher low, or I'm wrong. An aggressive bull will look at this and say, okay, well, here's a potential weekly equilibrium within a potential 2-month equilibrium. So an aggressive bull can say, they can either make the statement, $8 is the 2-month higher low, or I'm wrong, or they can be watching this week and say, all right, well, if SERV can break 1078, that's the weekly higher low being set. We can be playing off the 953 support and say, that's the weekly higher low, or I'm wrong. And then we'll look to tighten up further. If we get a weekly equilibrium and bulls give us this weekly higher low, the direction this equilibrium breaks will likely dictate whether that is a 2-month higher low or not. So I'm watching SERV for a weekly higher low to try and shape up this week. We've got a little daily equilibrium. I love that. When you get a mama pattern and then baby patterns on the shorter term time frames, it's the same thing. We got a 2-month equilibrium, we got a potential weekly equilibrium, and we got a daily equilibrium. And again, it's just the tightening, constricting range of higher lows and lower highs. So the daily needs to break bull for the weekly higher low to be set. The weekly will need to break bull for the 2-month higher low to be set. And that's one of the names I'm watching in robotics. There's certainly more. Again, my style, I'm watching everything. I'm trading so many different sectors that I generally only pick one or two, like 2 names per sector and just focus on those. Other people specialize. Nothing wrong with that. You know, you're way more up to date on the fundamentals. You're aware of any possible dilution coming on SERV. When's the last time they raised capital? What's their cash burn like? Are they going to have to dilute again in the near-term future? I don't know the answer to any of those questions. But someone who's focusing only on the robotic sector or majority on the robotic sector in 2026 is going to be watching more names and is going to be more in tune with the fundamentals. BOTS is the ETF. Whenever you're looking at an ETF, you definitely want to be aware of what's in it. And that's where AI can help. BOTS Holdings. One of the bummers for me is the exposure to NVDA. It's 11% of the ETF. I'd prefer if it was less. I want less correlation with everything. When I'm looking at these little subsectors, one of the things I liked a lot in Q4 2025 was the amount of times where a lot of my holdings would be down in a red, broader market day, but my silver position would be nice and green, offsetting it all. So I welcome a lack of correlation. I don't just want a ton of holdings that are tracking the NASDAQ, which is tracking semiconductors, which is tracking NVIDIA. So I don't like that 11% of this ETF is NVDA. I got plenty of exposure, as does everybody with any exposure in the market elsewhere. But still looking at it, monthly time frame, all-time highs are in play. And we know blue sky breakout is when things get spicy and fun. So bulls are hoping that a monthly higher low is forming. If the inside bar breaks bull in January, monthly higher low is set, and we're knocking on the door of all-time highs. Can this be a monthly bull flag before new all-time highs? Absolutely. That's worth keeping an eye on. In terms of liquidity and volume, again, you want to be aware of things. It's not a ton. It's trading $15, $25 million a day. You can see it is definitely correlated to the NASDAQ, and that's the NVDA exposure talking. Same daily equilibrium shaping up as QQQ. So I don't love that aspect, but I'm definitely watching SERV. And again, there's plenty of other individual robotic names, and I would suggest that if you're interested in it, you say, give me top 10 robotics publicly traded companies. And then you go one by one and you look at the charts. Some of them will stand out to you in terms of you like this setup and some won't. Other theme? What was next? Rare earth. So again, it's a loose term, rare earth. But we're looking at MP. So MP had a blow-off top run back with the China Trump administration stuff going on. And again, it's just one of those classic up 500% in a few months and very quickly down 50%. If you run hundreds of percent in a short period of time, you will pull back 50% plus at some point. So now we've done that. This could go in the other theme, Euphoria monthly higher lows, because it's the same setup. We know a monthly higher low is the most likely scenario compared to 1864. And I'll get to questions in just a bit once I'm done. Feel free to keep asking them and clicking the like button. So we're scouting a monthly higher low. I do like looking at EMA 12 as an area to pinpoint, paying a bit more extra attention. And so I'm watching MP in Q1 2026 for a monthly higher low. Is there any indication that it is being set? No. We just hit a fresh low. So we're looking down 50-50 was the low. We just broke it. Past couple trading days, we got a daily downtrend. We got a weekly downtrend as our guides. if we were to see a weekly bounce shape up from here, I would consider it a bear flag confirming with no follow through, and I'd start paying a little bit closer attention. You can slow bleed for a long time when you're coming off a blow off top. First things first, you shoot up, you pull back hard, but then we can slow bleed. And a bunch of the other names we're going to look at in the same monthly high or low Euphoria grouping have this slow bleed going on right now. So I'm in no rush. There's gaps down here to be watching, but I do know that I am scouting an MP monthly high or low, potentially in January. And what does that mean? That means I keep checking in on it. Does something shape up? Do we get a big enough bounce where I say, hey, that's bulls proving something. I'm going to scout a daily high or low. And if we confirm a daily trend change, the monthly high or low will be forming. I don't see anything I like in this moment. I know the monthly most likely scenario. I remind myself that monthly high or low could form at 48 or 40. That's a huge difference. I can't just guess. I need something to shape up where I say that's the monthly high or low for my thesis, or I am wrong. And we have nothing shaping up yet, but I'm going to keep checking in on it. CCJ, Uranium. Had a great run. Uranium had a great run the last couple of years. But what's the most likely scenario here? A monthly high or low. Monthly inside bar just formed. Is a monthly high or low forming on CCJ? That's something we can be watching for. CCJ is the fundamental leader for uranium. Bulls are hoping, pretty much any commodity bull is hoping that the metals run. You got your laggard metals, palladium, copper, etc. They're hoping it goes into oil. They're hoping it continues to go into uranium. And one of the first market books I ever read, I only started reading market books the last couple of years, was Listening When Markets Speak. Author is slipping my brain at the moment, but you can look it up. I enjoyed reading it. His whole thesis was a shift towards more tangible assets, metals, commodities, etc. And that's definitely the theme of a theme of 2025. Again, multiple themes: AI, commodities, metals, certainly. So, watching for that to continue to be the case. Whether it's, again, all these names. We're going to look for a gold and silver monthly high or low eventually in 2026 at some point. We're going to look for a uranium monthly high or low. The monthly consolidation is already underway here, so that means perhaps the monthly high or low in uranium will be set sooner. But there's other names like URNJ, which is the junior miners of uranium. Same thing. Massive bull move, bit of a blow off, couple 100%, scouting the monthly high or low, which is the most likely result of this pullback. Monthly inside bar just formed. It's a bit weaker than CCJ overall, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on uranium, on metals, on oil even. I don't see anything I like in oil in the moment, but I'm going to keep an eye on oil just to see if it gets its turn. Lithium, LIT, great year. We bottomed in April. We went up 100%. 6 month. My question for lithium is, do we form a forever equilibrium with a 6 month lower high compared to the all-time high? And we'll be talking about this 6 month equilibrium, 3 long-term pattern live streams from now at the end of 2026, maybe. But 1 month at a time, monthly stair step. So I know that when we consolidate, a monthly high or low after this size of a move is going to be the most likely scenario. Just like back here, monster move, scout a monthly high or low. This was a monthly inside bar. It broke bull at 64s, and we then ran up to 90. That's a 50% move of continuation. Could that happen here? Absolutely. We don't have a sign of monthly consolidation being underway just yet, but I know that eventually, and what I'd like to see is after this EMA 12 rejection, hold monthly EMA 12 on a back test, and then try for continuation. So I will, at some point in 2026, be scouting an LIT monthly high or low. REMX, already started monthly consolidation. Bulls are trying for a very quick higher low there. But again, same thing. We held a long-term low, 3-month time frame. Are we just going to tighten up all of 2026 or not? I don't have the answer. I don't love this setup for REMX just because, if we head higher from here, I'm not going to have an entry that I like. That was a very quick higher low. It is a potential monthly bull flag, but still keeping an eye on it. All right, robots, rare earth. Let's talk plant medicine. So that's the hippie term for psychedelics, cannabis, etc. Let's go psychedelics first because ATAI was in these long-term pattern videos from 2025. And the reason it was in there is because this was a forever monthly equilibrium. We were tightening up for years, and we broke bull in July. And it was great. Look at the volume surge. The break took place at 257. And this is why I love the longer term time frames. Oh man, the bull breaks at 257. We're up 150% from the lows 8 months ago or whatever by the time the break takes place. I missed it. No. Long-term time frames can follow through for long-term. From that bull break of 257, we then went up another 163% over the next 4 months. Huge gains. What we're watching for is the narrative. Do we get law changes? Do we get merger and acquisitions? Do we get, trial results that are game changers? These are things that we're watching. Why I'm extra attention on psychedelics is they haven't had their euphoria run. The gains are there, but social media didn't catch on. This wasn't, trending on Wall Street bets. This wasn't a topic of conversation for an entire week on CNBC. There's still more juice to be squeezed in the psychedelic space if we get the fundamentals aligning for some hype, right? I love hype breakouts and euphoria. We're not in blue sky breakout. We're nowhere near it. But we can say same thing. Euphoria, top, hundreds of percent, 50% pullback, scouting a monthly higher low. Sector peers have a different setup. They didn't run as much. MNMD, I love this back test. So this was a very tough resistance zone. And full disclosure, I have exposure in all of these. Not a lot. I want to add more. But this was a resistance zone in the low 10s. Look at this back test. If that's the monthly higher low, continuation's coming. It's a perfect back test, and we're trying to hit multi-year highs. These are low caps. They're extremely high risk, high reward. MNMD daily average volume is $25 million traded. That's not a lot in the grand scheme of things. That's another reason that I'm watching these names. If you start getting hundreds of millions of dollars coming in, they can run. CMPS, another one. Resistance. Let's zoom into the weekly. Look at this tough resistance in the low $5 range. Reject, 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 reject. Get over it. Hold it back up near the highs. So again, this long-term chart has a lot of work to do to shift momentum. But if the narrative catches, psychedelics can rip. So I'm paying attention to them. And what I like is, technically speaking, they're doing great over the last 6 months without needing that hype headline run. Just the technicals. That tells me whether that's, big money grabbing positions or institutions, whatever, I don't know. But I like when you have a steady uptrend, not needing headlines and hype to propel the move forward. So I need to add some more to these names. They gave some real nice gains in 2025. I always kept them smaller positions because it's very high risk, high reward. You can get a headline of bad trial results and be down 30% in one day. So your position size has to match that. Cannabis is a very different sector. Cannabis has already had its euphoria run when Canada legalized in 2018. Even the US had a run in 2020 where we ran hundreds of percent. The individual names ran 1,000% plus. That means there's a lot of bag holders. For me, it's a bit of a different setup. We also have the scenario in cannabis where they need the headlines. These charts are not just riding uptrends without needing pushes of help along the way. But the headlines are potentially there. Trump signing the executive order to reschedule to Schedule 3. That would be the biggest positive shift that the sector federally has ever seen since 1932 or whenever it was where they made it illegal. Can't disregard that, but the stocks are not performing without, the pattern in the cannabis sector has been you get a headline, you spike, and then you just slow bleed and give it back. And so that has to change. We need individual names to uplist. We need official rescheduling. We need, word on how much of Medicaid is going to be able to buy cannabis products. There's a lot of information that we still need, but again, just putting it on this list because there are potential headline narrative catalysts for this sector in 2026. And so if MSOS bulls are going to do anything here, weekly, we need to set a higher low, and we have a lot of work to do. But definitely still paying attention to psychedelics and cannabis in 2026. My throat is starting to give out. We got one more. So Euphoria monthly higher lows. And again, we already talked about how MP could technically be one of those. The other ones, HIMS is one of them. Nope. HIMS was a 3-month higher low. I'm not really interested in HIMS much. Hold on, there was something I was watching on HIMS. I don't know what it was, but I don't have it. Oh, it was looking for a potential higher low off of 24. I'm going to skip HIMS because it's not. This would be the setup I'm talking about. Blow off top, massive run, 50% pullback, monthly higher low off EMA 12. Big gains from there. So again, MP, can we form a monthly higher low off EMA 12? And even if you set a lower high, very worthwhile gains. So the other names, Open. Open getting a bit of a cult following on social media. I don't care about any of that. We ran massively, 1,000%. We've pulled back 50%. We're going to scout a monthly higher low, watching EMA 12. There's no sign of it. Daily chart, this is a slow bleed bear control. We're heading back down towards the recent low of 524, but Open is a name to be keeping an eye out for a monthly higher low in Q1 2026. OKLO, Uranium, 1,000%, whatever. Big pullback, monthly higher low, anything above 17s, tons of space for it. We're looking for something like that. Even if you set a monthly low or high, it can be a week bounce for a monthly higher low. On a lot of these names is a 50% bounce. So we're at the low right now. The bears have full control. We haven't hit daily oversold yet. Technically, that'd be a back burner. First daily oversold conditions from all-time highs, looking for a monthly higher low. So I'm watching OKLO for an eventual monthly higher low. And another quantum, QBTS, is the lead quantum bull during this consolidation, monthly inside bar. Back test and hold previous resistance as support. Is this a monthly higher low shaping up? Maybe. There are no red flags on this chart, aside from the fact that it ran really hard. Again, same thing, pullback 50% plus. IONQ, the sector leader. Anything above 34.77 is a monthly higher low. Again, if we set a monthly higher low, we have to be cautious of monthly lower highs on all these names. And in fact, monthly lower highs are probably the most likely scenario for me. But again, the percentage gains just to find that monthly lower high can be very worthwhile. So I'm watching all these names. Previous hype euphoria, ran massively, pulled back 50% plus, monthly higher lows, most likely scenario. I'm watching them for monthly higher lows in Q1 2026. All right. How long have we been going? Jeez. 51 minutes. That's why my throat hurts. All right. I'm going to read some of these questions. I'll get to the ones that I can. Not every single one. So I talked about silver and my game plan, watching EMA 12. When do you switch to log charts? Euphoria exponential runs. And for me, it's just toggling. You know, what's the different look? Or do they move it? I'm not even going to be able to find it just because they moved the button of where log. Oh, there it is. So yeah, I just look like, you know, just because it's a different. This goes to a lesson that I talked about this week where if your pre-market trading range is really tight and then the bell rings, the size of the 5-minute candles are going to be deceivingly large. And vice versa, if you've got a very wide pre-market range and the bell rings, deceivingly, the candle size is deceiving. But it's worth toggling log. Again, a name like IONQ, it ran thousands of percent. You look here, and it looks very different. Is this a rising wedge? I don't know. Worth keeping an eye on. I guess you could say it already is breaking. So anyways, I honestly, the answer is I very rarely will use log, but there are times where I will just give it a little toggle. Because, again, based on the y-axis and things like that, the candles can be deceiving. ADBE. Yeah, that's an equilibrium to watch. 6-month time frame. I like it. Anything over 274 is a 6-month higher low, trying to form a forever equilibrium. We would need a weekly uptrend to confirm to the bulls as the first baby step. Potential inverse head and shoulders. If we're about to start weekly consolidation, we set a higher low, maybe the 330s, confirm a weekly uptrend. That'll be the start of a 6-month higher low. This could easily have been in my presentation. I don't watch Adobe, but your mind's in the right spot. Happy New Year's. Do you think the BTC bear market will be different because the bull market will be different? Yeah. I think it's going through a massive shift in liquidity, adoption, ETFs, etc. I don't like using its limited 11-year history or whatever to try and draw. The number one thing about markets is they change. You can't just look and say, oh, this thing keeps happening, it's going to keep happening. No, this thing keeps happening, it's going to change. That's how markets work. So I think the correct approach to Bitcoin is throwing the prior data out the window back when 10 people were trading it. It's a completely different animal than it used to be. And its correlation to the NASDAQ is only strengthening because of that. So, yeah, be open to new stuff for sure. Are the 80% pullbacks done? I would say probably. Just because, again, when you increase liquidity, you're going to go up less, you're going to go down less. I'm not even thinking about, give me weekly oversold on Bitcoin, and I'll think about longer term stuff. No, not even then. No, we're nowhere near enough fear. Give me a 6-month higher low, then I'll watch for potential long-term positions. But again, I'm in, I sold my 8-year position, some of it, for the first time in 8 years, my mindset's in the opposite place in terms of looking to establish long-term positions. I've got my exposure that I want. It's not anywhere in the forefront of my thoughts. What's up, Black Mamba? Do I prefer trading leveraged ETFs of individual stocks versus the individual stocks? No. And that's just because I have plenty of capital. If I had limited capital, I'd be trading them more and utilizing them more. But I'm never in position sizes that max out my cash in my day trading account. So I would just rather use twice the size to trade the actual stock. Honestly, I'm not watching lead or zinc at all. Jungle Funk Joey is much more in tune with the commodities and futures. I'm actually going to go visit him in Thailand in a couple of weeks. So we'll do a Thailand live stream at some point, and we can ask him then. Real estate. Choppy. I don't see anything I like about real estate. I look at this chart. Whenever I pull up a chart, does this have clarity for me? And the answer is no. It's choppy, it's range bound, it's sideways. I have no interest. Technically in a monthly downtrend, lower high, lower low there. But yeah, no interest from me. I want to look at a chart and say, I've got an edge there. I know the most likely scenario. I've seen that pattern 100 times. I've traded that pattern 427 times. For me, that's equilibriums. That's a number of things. But if I pull up a chart and it doesn't jump out at me in terms of that, move on. And XLRE is chop for me. I bought SLV. I know the PSLV, SLV, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I went with liquidity, dollar volume. Baba, I'm watching for a monthly high or low. And I'm watching a potential daily falling wedge. But we better bounce soon if that daily falling wedge is going to stay viable. If the daily falling wedge breaks bull, it's the first step towards a monthly high or low being set. I don't like trading Baba. I don't like the overnight gaps because it's based in China. So I just don't trade it. What do I think about futures trading? I think it's great. Silver is honestly the first time I've desired futures trading in the last like 4 years. For its overnight volatility. Way more comfortable trading futures on silver versus SLV and having my hands tied for 12 hours or whatever. Joey loves futures and isn't looking back from that change. It's just not for me. I like trading individual stocks. I like trading individual hype sectors, hype names. It's not good or bad. Some people prefer it. I understand why. I haven't looked at a nickel chart. I don't even know which to use. I mean, a temporary bottom's in, but just zoom out. Look at the 3-month time frame. You know, the most likely scenario is going to be a 3-month lower high, anything under 33,566. I would say good sign that it didn't top out with silver. But you got to be cautious of it. Number one thing is, okay, if metals are topping out into weekly consolidation, Do we get the rotation into other names like nickel where they can stay with momentum? Or is nickel just going to roll over as well? You got to see significant relative strength while the leaders are consolidating if the laggards are going to be able to keep their momentum. How would I enter? Looking at this, it has to be a daily high or low. If I'm going to like the risk reward, I have to enter on a daily high or low and say that's the daily high or low or I'm wrong and use that level as my stop. And so I would need to wait for daily consolidation to begin before I even started formulating a game plan. All right, crypto, starting off 2025, 6. Volatility's coming. This range is going to break within the next 2 weeks, probably this coming week. Boring money spends just fine. I like that. Other metals definitely, well, I mean, silver's volatility is very high. Certainly more volatile. I mean, crypto compared to metals, Bitcoin and gold, and then, silver and Ethereum, and then altcoins and nickel, copper, whatever. Yeah, it's very similar in that regard. I lost my spot, bear with me. MSOS weekly volume. Doesn't stand out to me. Obviously the big headline spike, but it doesn't stand out to me in a meaningful way. Cost was in these videos years ago. We were talking about cost in 2023, long-term pattern videos. Why? Because it was a monthly, beautiful equilibrium, and it broke bull, and it didn't look back. Beautiful. Now what? 3-month high or low on watch. We've been holding 3-month EMA 12 forever. That has to remain the case, and that's coming into play. It'll be in the low 800s to start Q1. So if I'm looking longer term for an entry, I'm watching for a 3-month high or low to try and form. One note I want to make about the broader market. In the back of my mind, again, I look at this chart. This is SPY. And I remind myself that there is literally an entire generation of traders, myself included, where 2022 is the most significant bear market we've ever seen. And it was hardly, I'd say bear market, hardly a bear market. It was a 3-month high or low. It was 9 months of red. I just remind myself that there's an entire generation that is going to see multiple years with no new all-time high. And that's going to happen. That's how markets work. And there's an entire new generation, my generation of traders, that are going to be humbled and not ready for it because everything they know about markets says, buy the dip, we're going to keep ripping. That will change. So that doesn't mean anything in the here and now, but just know that there's this little voice in the back of my head that is always reminding myself, this is coming, this is going to happen, whether it happens in 2026 or 2030, I have no idea, but it's going to happen. It's an inevitable part of the cycles. How do I follow so many charts and not get overwhelmed? Number one, I love it. But number two, what I'm doing right now is me organizing my brain. I do weekly videos. I do daily check-in in the chat room with the chart guys. Do the same thing. Record videos for yourself. Obviously, you don't have to put them public, but at the end of every week, do what I do. Analyze the broader market. What are your thoughts? It's a journal. I don't journal. I don't write anything down. But my YouTube channel is my journal. I like RIVN. It's a volatile beast to hang on to the swings, but weekly high or low, most likely scenario. I might be interested in an entry. If we back test here, I doubt if we were to dip that low, it would start to be a bit of a red flag for me. But yeah, we put it, I mean, again, another one. Just like ATAI, monthly. Just a beautiful monthly long-term tightening range that broke bull. Potential for a longer-term bottom being set. But it's a volatile beast. LEU, definitely a month. This would fit in the category of Euphoria top, 50% pullback, monthly high or low watch. I like that, thanks. Writing it down. Hit that like button. Yeah, you tell them. What's the difference between a head and shoulders top and a head and shoulders continuation? I don't know anything about a head and shoulders continuation pattern. I know about a head and shoulders top and an inverse head and shoulders bottom, but there's no such, for me, there's no such thing as a head and shoulders continuation pattern. You either break the support and set the top, or it's not a head and shoulders. Nope, I don't use volume profile. Like Clement, we have different styles. So palladium, you could say the same thing as silver and gold. We're looking for a weekly high or low. It's definitely not a good sign to get back to 2 weeks of breakout and 1 week of drop. We are still holding weekly EMA 12, so you can say bulls are keeping control as long as that is the case, but definitely some red flags with the size of the drop. The big question is going to be the same for silver. Can bears confirm a daily downtrend and try and shape up longer-term consolidation or not? But again, definitely to be sideways and finally get 2 weeks of breakout and then give it all back that fast, not ideal. Again, it's another one. Zoom out to the 3-month time frame. A long-term lower high, for me, is the most likely scenario here. We've got to confirm a long-term trend change. Look at silver's 3-month chart. We did a ton of base building, trend change, momentum shift. This is years. This takes years before that breakout could happen. So just be aware that some of these metals can definitely be setting long-term lower highs to try and form its tightening range. You know, maybe palladium is just doing what silver did here off of its lows. In 2020, silver did go up 100%, but it then took a lot of further base building definitely watching BCH. If Bitcoin bulls can break bull, BCH key resistance is right there. For longer term positions, how do I sell? Massive euphoria like silver, or walking up a stop and being stopped out. Those are pretty much the only two ways. And it's sometimes both. Sometimes I'll sell half the position into a big bull move, and then the rest of the position, I'm just walking up a stop every time a longer term support is established. All right, I gotta wrap it up. Joey's still doing the chart, guys. He's in the chat room every day. All right. All right. Thoughts on oil? I'm watching for a monthly high or low. But bulls have proven to do. Thanks for $2, James. Nope, no New Year membership sale. That's what the Black Friday sale is. All right, I got to wrap it up. Throat hurts. How do I stay calm in overnight weekend positions? I mean, once you've taken thousands of trades, you don't go through the emotional roller coaster. You know, big win, big loss. Again, the people in my life can't tell if I have a big win or a big loss. It's just you get a bit numb to those rushes. So, you know, overnight positions, I'm never massively in overnight positions. I prefer cash. My day trading account is my largest account, and that's the vast majority of the time it's cash. But again, if you've experienced an overnight win 1,000 times and an overnight loss 1,000 times, it's no big deal. It takes work. It takes practice. It took me a while to go from day trading complete control to more swing trade focus and giving up a bit of that control. All right, thanks again, everybody. Here's to a good 2026. We'll check back in on these names in a few months. Keep an eye on that NASDAQ daily equilibrium. That's going to dictate January. And keep an eye on crypto. Volatility is coming real soon. As always, do good things. We'll see you soon.